Hey everyone, today we're going to talk a little bit about aperture. If you've been watching the channel or been to a lecture of mine, you've probably heard me say I'm an f2 guy, or I like to shoot wide open. I've had some requests to explain that, so in today's video I'm going to talk about why I like to shoot wide open and take some photos to demonstrate it. When I started shooting a lot commercially and professionally, I came up with shooting hip hop, right? And we would basically have these hip hop artists, and there would be so much noise on set, and it would be such a great atmosphere and electric feeling and dancing and moving. And now, in order to get the most possible sharpness, I would shoot closed down all the way. So there'd only be a tiny little bit of light coming in my camera, but that meant that I got a much greater depth of field. So when somebody was moving and I was slightly off the eyes, I would still have sharpness. Now, the problem with that is you need a lot of light from somewhere else if you're only letting a little bit in. So I would have multiple strobe heads, all popping, high power, to be able to shoot at like f16 or f22 to get the most sharpness when I was making these portraits. And that's what I did for a long time. The more light, the better. Bitube heads, this head, you know, f16, and that worked, okay? When I stopped shooting so much music in that way, stopped shooting so much hip hop, I did a little bit of a personal project where I started to shoot my friends, and I started to make portraits of my friends. And once again, I'd set up my lights at maximum power, and I would look at these portraits and they were two-dimensional. And I think, wow, if I could only try and find a way to make the portrait a little more dimensional. Obviously went back and started looking at other photographers that I think had been successful in this. And one thing that I really noticed that really jumped out at me was that, wait, it's not sharp front to back. They're being selective with their focus. And that selective focus was giving the picture more of a three-dimensional effect. Okay, cool. How do you do that? All right, swung my aperture completely the other way, and all of a sudden I'm shooting at the narrowest depth of field. And this works beautifully to give more dimension, more of a three-dimensional feel. For instance, if you have a backdrop, and your backdrop, you don't want it sharp, you want it soft and out of focus, because you want to focus your attention on the face or the eyes. When you have everything sharp and you have that backdrop pin sharp and everything pin sharp, I think your eyes kind of wiggle around not knowing where to look. But if you can manage to just keep a selective part of that image sharp, then I think that helps to define the portrait, make it what it is, and make it stand out as a portrait instead of a photograph. Coincidentally, Esquire came to me with a project to photograph 80 American men, ages 1 through 80, one of every age. And I thought, oh, this is a chance that I can really get to play with this. So I made some portraits. I traveled, I made portraits of so many influential people of their ages, but one that stands out is a portrait I made of Bill Clinton. And there's just something happened with the fall off on his face where his eyes were sharp and everything else fell off, and I looked at it and it was like, wow, that is the three-dimensional look I've been looking for. And like, what is the factor? What is it that's giving me that? And I decided very much so that it was the tiny F number, f2. And that is what I've been doing ever since. So we've talked a little bit about why I love f2, but now I'm going to talk about why it's a really bad idea sometimes. When you have this tiny depth of field, focus becomes critical, so they tell me. And if you look at quite a lot of my pictures, my focus is not as critical as it should be. So even though I love to have like an eye perfectly sharp, sometimes because I'm shooting f2, I have to compromise that. And some of my pictures are not as sharp as they maybe could be if I was shooting f8 or f11, but I still feel the payoff for getting that 3D feel and the fall off of the lens is worth it. another reason not to shoot f2 is if you're doing any kind of product shot, or if you are photographing a family of 3 and they are not on the same plane, you're shooting wide open. The kid sitting at front is going to be out of focus. The dad sitting at the back is going to be out of focus, and the mum will be in focus. So you have to be very, very careful, and it's a creative decision that you have to make, but make sure you're using it right, because otherwise shooting f2 is going to look like a mistake. So another thing is that, you know, I shoot a lot of celebrity and I shoot a lot of people. And one thing I really love to be able to do is to talk while holding my camera and not stop the conversation while I'm working. So people relax quicker, it feels more like a conversation. You know, if you're holding it here, the camera tends to disappear more than if you have a conversation and then you go, now look into the lens. You kind of lose it. Another thing about shooting wide open, which is really nice, is because you have less light, it's not so intrusive. So you're not blinding somebody while they're sitting on set, and it allows you to have more of a conversation without them being literally blinded by powerful lights, because you're shooting, you need that power to shoot, say, f16 or f32. And that really works for me, because the more relaxed and conversational I can have through a portrait session, the more chance I'm going to capture that off moment or that genuine moment between me and them. And that's, you know, why it's kind of nice to work in a cozy, not crazy, overlit environment. That's more than enough talking. I'd love to show you some examples. And if only I could find a willing participant to sit for a portrait. Alex!
Yeah.
Alex.
Yeah.
Come and sit.
Look at the camera as you call me in. I'm sitting?
Yeah, have a seat.
What are you doing? What are you working on?
I'm talking about f2.
Okay.
Super quick, folks. My camera is a Leica S medium format camera. My shutter speed is at 1125. My ISO is 100, and I am wide open. And on this 120 lens, that is f2.5. Now, if you were to compare that similarly to a 35, if you do the maths, this lens would be like an f2 lens on a 35mm, but on medium format it's f2.5, but that's as open as I can get. All right, so here we go. Alex, think sexy time with yourself.
That's what I was thinking before you started taking photos.
Okay, folks, so f16, light is quite pretty. I mean, it's Alex. And our backdrop is kind of almost pin sharp. Our nose is pin sharp, our hair is pin sharp. Everything's pin sharp. Not loving it. So I'm gonna go down halfway now, and I'm gonna go down to f8. And just if you wanna know, that is one stop, 2 stops. So f8 to f16 is 2 stops. So we're going to turn our lights down, 2 stop. Jeez.
Yep.
Alex, can you stop undressing me with your eyes? Because I'm feeling He's heard everything before. I'm getting nothing here. All right, so f8 is, you know, once again pretty light, but seeing a little bit of out of focus on the ear at the back, and sharp.
Are you just gonna berate me?
No, I'm gonna say nice things.
All right, say nice things. Yeah, that is what I thought.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I got a joke for you while you shoot.
Okay, give me a joke.
You want to hear a Doty joke?
Yeah.
White horse fell in the mud.
Oh, it's very, very, very bad.
Yeah, it's so bad. I used to get so mad.
Well, who would tell you that joke?
My father, and then when my older brothers realized how much that joke pissed me off because it was not a dirty joke, everybody told me that joke.
Do you remember your actual first dirty joke?
No, I don't. You know, I'm the youngest of like 4 boys, so.
Right, so you were hearing a lot of dirty jokes.
I was spoon-fed.
Right. Can you lean into the camera a little bit?
Yeah, like this?
Yeah,
like
lean.
This?
No, not so much.
No, what do you want me to do?
Just lean in a touch.
Yeah, I'll put my foot up and lean.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, lean into me, and just think about, you know,
I'm trying to make my face look less fat.
Summer, you're not supposed to be making me laugh here. I just want you to think summer.
Well, I know when I've done this, so if you tell me to lean forward, my face looks fat. I know what's going on.
Just think of summer nights in Alabama. You got it? Mm-hmm. These summer nights. I think I got it. I got it.
Oh my God, okay, I gotta go back to work. Do you like kiss photos?
Yeah. No,
okay, you're on your own.
But just bear with me for a minute. This is such a classic example of why I love f2. There is nothing even resembling focus here. Not even the eyes, I don't think.
No, look how sharp that little nose piece on my glasses are.
The nose piece is pin sharp. The eyes are not sharp, but they're sharp enough. But look at that beautiful fall off there.
Well, what about this little bit right there? What's that?
Yeah, this is just beautiful. And even his mustache, which you can see his lunch right at the front there, but as we move to the side, it hides all his lunch, and it just goes soft. And you know, we'll do a couple of little color corrections on this, and I really like this picture. It's hard to get Alex to do that, and I think that's great. All right, folks, so I had the pleasure of photographing Alex, which is probably a great pleasure for him, but extremely painful for everyone else. And we made photographs at 3 different f-stops. We photographed f16, f8, and wide open at f2.5. Now, I'm looking at this portrait at f16, and the light's pretty, his eye is sharp, the way the light and shadow are playing with each other is really nice, but when I look at it, because this is sharp here, and this is sharp here, and this is sharp here, I don't feel my eye is a place to really rest, because it's sharp everywhere, and I'm not getting this relief of like out of focus prettiness. So it's not for me. When we go to the f8, which I think I got a better composition and almost a better look from Alex, eye is sharp. I can see it beginning to slightly fall off, slightly having that feel, working a little better, but still not enough. When I get to my f2.5, a couple of things happen. For instance, in the mustache, the hairs are really, really sharp, you know, on the plane with the eye, but then they go soft and pretty at the back, and my eye is pulled into the focal point, which is around the eyes, and that really works for me, and I think that defines my style a little bit. Now, the other thing that happens, and I'm not sure of the technical explanation of this, but here's what I think. When you're shooting f16 and your aperture is closed way down, the light comes into the camera in such a way that it doesn't refract very much before it hits the plane. And these specular highlights on the forehead are really sharp, and I find them a little bit jarring. Now, with the same light, without changing anything, when we shoot at f2, 2.5, we still get these gorgeous specular highlights on his forehead and on his cheek and on his chin, but they're softer and they feel softer and they feel more natural to me. It almost feels a bit more film-like than digital, the way that this is rendering. Now, let's be honest, folks, there is no right or no wrong. This is all opinion. If you're doing a hair campaign, let's say, and you know, the client needs sharp hair from here to here, then you're gonna have to shoot at f16 because there's no other way, or f22, because there's no other way to get full sharpness. So no right, no wrong, it's all taste, it's all what you like better. I like all 3 of these pictures, genuinely. The only thing I don't like about them is the subject, but I had very little choice. And I think I've helped to explain to myself why I like f2. Hope you guys learned something. I'd love to hear your opinions about what you shoot at and why. Please leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you next time.